Yo, what is up everyone? Back here with another video. Today we're going to be going over the most recently held Victory Road Series 12 challenge that I ended up winning. I'm not going to be talking about the team that I use. That is going to be a separate video going over the team, but I did want to talk about the tournament, most used teams, pretty much go through every individual team, kind of give my thoughts and opinions on them, and yeah. That's pretty much it. So we're going to start from the bottom. We're going to go all the way up. If you guys would like to look at usage, here it is. It's actually the first thing we're going to look at. So, not surprising, Zacian is number 1 on usage. Zacian is super, super good, right? We have Incineroar, right? Incineroar did drop a little bit in usage, but does that really surprise anyone? Like, because it got passed by Zacian. Like, that was the only thing that was ever going to pass Incineroar, right? Incineroar is obviously a really good intimidator, super good at positioning, so not surprised to see that. Also, Gastrodon has seen a surge in popularity as well, which is super cool as well, right? I think that it can definitely affect the metagame quite a bit, right? Because you notice that a lot of these Kyogre teams are kind of getting grass types that can really break these Gastrodons. They're kind of having new adaptations that kind of change how they interact. I know even me going into this tournament, I actually teched Rillaboom over Venusaur because Venusaur felt too dependent on Dynamax, and I needed a consistent Gastrodon check that didn't like rely on the max, right? So that was kind of a nice thing there. But if you'll notice, right, like Gastrodon's picking up a lot. You'll notice that there's a rise in a lot of other rogue restricteds like Solgaleo, stuff like that. So really interesting to see as a whole, you know, what kind of Pokemon are picking up, which ones are kind of dropping down. But yeah, overall, I mean, this usage pretty much makes sense, right? Now, going over to the most common archetypes, Zacian Groudon, I said this really early in the format. I think it had potential to improve a lot as a team, and people just need to find the right build for it. And a Japanese player named Rinya popularized a really good screens version with the team, and I think that kind of just opened up the floodgates to really like allowing this kind of archetype to shine, right? So now we've kind of seen like, you know, this archetype kind of shoot up in usage. Veltalization dropped a little bit. I still think Veltalization is good, but I'm not surprised to see it drop. I would say these, I would honestly say if I were to give a top 5 archetypes, I'd say 1, 2 between these, 3, 4, and then one of these 5, right? Solgaleo I'd probably put at 6 in terms of like viability, but definitely an interesting development, I guess. So kind of cool to see, but yeah, I mean that's pretty much it for the actual usage. So we're gonna go through the teams individually. First off, we just see a standard like Tailwind Zacian offense team. I mean, this isn't really that shocking, you know. Pretty much just have like that offensive option with Zapdos. You get the immediate Tailwind pressure, Helping Hand, bunch of stuff like that. You get the Water Spout pressure, so it's just super good as a whole, right? You get options for Grassy Glide, you get options for high horsepower, just a bunch of stuff you can do there. And then standard Zacian set, Behemoth Blade, allowing you to hit a lot of other Dynamax Pokemon for a lot of damage. Play Rough, allowing you to hit Palkia, which is really important to beat with this team. Also, my camera's like really dark. I just realized, hold on. Okay, that should be better. Hopefully you guys see me now. But yeah, pretty standard team, you know, just kind of capitalizing off of the offense of like Zacian Ogre. You pretty much click Tailwind, attack, and then you have like 2 support Fake Outers, and then Zapdos is your main max, right? Then we go over here. Takuma's team using Kyurem White. Ew, I don't like Kyurem White. But obviously we see kind of this is the same build as usual. It is running Flash Cannon, which is kind of interesting. I don't know necessarily how that would work. But you notice that the Grimmsnarl 2 is also biased towards like the more offensive Fake Cures, Fake Out set. Which makes a lot of sense on this team. I think that you're trying to do damage. Also, Imprison with 3 attack Zacian is pretty funny. You kind of block all of the Zacian moves, which just allows your Kyurem to sit there, do it at once. So kind of cool in that regard. Also, Yachi Berry Whimsicott, not something I expected to see, but, you know, kind of cool option. There's a lot of support for Kyurem on this team. Then we go over here, Ryosei. This is a really interesting team. I did not understand this team really when I saw it, but I mean, you basically have your 2 restricteds. The Tricker mode is pretty much using these 2. Then you have Amoonguss, and then you probably clean up with one of the fillers. You have the Rain mode. You can go with the Entei if you want in the lead to reduce some damage. Would I necessarily recommend this team? Probably not. I don't really understand how it works, but you know. Go over here. Palkia, Zacian. So I'd say this build of Palkia Zacian is kind of interesting. I wouldn't necessarily say this is better than the other builds, mostly because you lack a little bit of synergy between the Earthquake with Landorus. You know, you have that next to Telepathy Palkia, but then also too, you have a Rillaboom on your team, which isn't so great. The Rain Dance Thunders is kind of cool. I definitely would have liked to see this being safety goggles, because this team is like very weak to Moongus as a whole, right? Like it's actually pretty hard to break a Moongus with this team. So definitely a little bit rough there. Then we go over here, Roberto Martinez using a kind of offensive Charizard Groudon, Charizard Groudon Zacian team. Nothing too crazy there. Also having a Life Orb Venusaur as well to kind of complement that. I could see how this team would be pretty solid. I would say the one issue that you'd maybe have is like Calyrex Ice. Calyrex Ice actually looks pretty demonic into this team, especially if like it has like some kind of terrain or something to protect itself from a Moongus. So definitely could see that being problematic. Then we go over here. This is basically like a standard Zacian Groudon build, just Venusaur over Gastrodon. I do think the Gastro version is a bit better. Overall, I'd say the team's fine. It's just your standard like Zacian Groudon build. This is similar to, I think, to something I posted early on in the format as like a rental code or something. But yeah, pretty straightforward team. I mean, you just leverage the offense of your Charizard. Probably having Solar Beam on Charizard would help as well. But yeah, overall, like a pretty straightforward team. I'm only going to start really picking out the teams that I find like are probably useful into the format to give you guys an idea of like what I think is better into the metagame, right? Like we look over here, I'm like not going to open them up fully, right? But like over here we go to Dylan Salvador's team. He's literally running my team, the same team that I used, so nothing different there. Literally exact same team. He did coaching with me like the day before this tournament, or like a couple days before this tournament, and he was like, "What do you recommend?" I'm like, straight up, like, the team I used to win Zelda, which at the time had Venusaur. I had the changes. He saw it. I was like, yeah. I was like, you should probably just use the changes. He brought it in like he cut. So I'd say the team is pretty good, right? Then we have Taizuke's team, pretty much just using the Ferrothorn Kingdra stuff. This team popped up already before, but I can see why it would pop up again. Kind of gets the opportunity for that offense. Salvador's Kyogre, kind of a cool composition. Then we have Morris's team. I would say this Calyrex Palkia combination does kind of confuse me sometimes, but I could see why it would be used. Then obviously here you have a Veltalization Raichu Lapras. This team has done well before. I do think it's a little lackluster. I think it lacks a lot of damage output, which is really problematic. Typically with teams in this format, you want them to have a lot of damage opportunities, and like this one doesn't really have the opportunity to deal much damage. So I'd say that's kind of tricky. This seems alright. I feel like the best Eveltalization builds typically have Landorus Grimmsnarl on them. Like, those are usually the best builds, so I'm not really going to touch on those too much. This is the first example of, like, the Rinya team that we would see. So this is the team that, for the most part, like I'm talking about. Pretty much, like, usually it's Sacred Sword play rough, but this one has Substitute. So basically what they do is they leverage, like, the Grimmsnarl into you, and their Rotom Heat matchup is pretty much tricking the Iron Ball onto the Rotom Heat and, going for, like, a ground move. And Assault Groudon really just eats up Kyogre moves like nothing. So you get like a lot of free pivots in with it. Then coming down here, we have Shota's team. This is just a double Intimidate Rillaboom team. You have the Raichu for support as well. You have Nuzzle as well, which is kind of cool. You have Helping Hand. One interesting thing is that the Kyogre is running Hyper Beam, Blizzard, Water Spout. So it's basically like always meant to be a max Kyogre, which is really weird because like you only have Water Spout. So if you get damaged, like you can't click your moves. So kind of a crazy set there. Continue up. Another one worth noting, I think, is Colin's team. I think that was one of the more interesting teams out of like this top 16. So out of the top 16, I think Dialga and Kyogre do exert a lot of pressure. I think that this team is pretty weak to like Yveltal Snarl if it gets in the right position, especially because there's no Blizzard on the Dialga, right? So it's going to have a little bit of trouble with that. That being said, I do think the team matches up really well into like most Zacian Ogre teams, stuff like that. So overall, pretty cool team. Looks pretty balanced, but I do think it can struggle with Yveltal a little bit. So maybe if like someone was to update it, it'd probably be a deal with Yveltal a bit better. Then we get into our top 8. We have Jude, pretty much using the same Colossal team that he's been using for a while. I mean, he's found a lot of success with it. Problem with Colossal is it does have some really bad matchups. So, like, Jude played Palkia, and, like, it was basically an auto loss. There was, like, nothing you could do. And that's a problem when you use stuff like Colossal. Like, you just kind of have to accept that there are some matchups that are just really bad for you, right? And obviously it's true with other teams, but, like, on a team that relies on, like, the 50-50 of, like, Colossal Urshifu and then the Eveltalization lead, you don't really want a matchup that's gonna really suck into, but like yeah, it's pretty rough. Then you have L's team. I'm gonna cover all of top 8 here. Pretty much it's just a standard Calyrex Shadow Groudon team that we saw find success before. This archetype has just really established itself. My friend Jones is actually the one who worked on it with North to make this team, and like, damn, dude, they built a really good team, because this thing's really good. Like, this team's really, really good. It's been popping up everywhere. It, like, leverages the Eerie Impulse Thunderous, right? It uses the Charizard mainly as like an offensive max. You have the 2 supports with Gastro and Incin. Will-O-Wisp with Calyrex. It's just a really nice option, like, team with a lot of options, right? Then we have Solgaleo Kyogre. I mean, it's a standard, like, Brutal Swing into Solgaleo stuff. I mean, you see this all the time. The one unique thing is that this Kyogre isn't running the standard, Calm Mind set that you usually see with these teams. It's actually running an offensive set, and then basically you stack Steel Spikes and Quakes next to the Ferrothorn. So it's kind of a cool variation on the archetype. Overall, kind of a similar thing, but, like, a little bit different. And then we go here. I really liked Agati's version of Tornogre. I thought it was a really cool idea and concept overall, and execution and everything. So I would definitely like to see this team pop up again. I think it's actually a really cool variation for like these Zacian Ogre teams. You get the double Intimidate, which is a really good option. The only thing that I was a little bit skeptical about seeing this team was the Thunderous matchup, because Thunderous looks kind of shaky here. So as long as you can figure out your Thunderous matchup with this team, I think it's a pretty cool team. Usually Kyogre teams have a bit more to respect Thunderous, so that would be the main thing I would criticize there, I guess. Then you have Adi's team. I thought Adi's team was really strong, especially if you're like a Palkia fan. This team literally is like super focused around like Palkia always maxing. Like, there's literally no other max option of this team. Palkia is always a Pokemon maxing. Maybe Ditto, I guess, if you copy something good. But like, yeah, like Palkia is always going to be the one maxing on this team. And basically it's just Palkia Zacian, 4 supports, you pick which ones you want to go with it. I guess Ditto's less of a support, more of an offensive option. Super cool team. I'm sure I'll have a video on his YouTube at some point. Torviv's team. So Torviv's team is cool. The double grass plus like Tornogre core is kind of neat. I will say you have to be very, very careful with Ferrothorn, right? Obviously you have 2 Sacred Swords though, so that kind of helps a little bit more. Also too, you have the Raichu with Helping Hand, which is nice. This also is really good for Thunderous, because otherwise Thunderous could be really annoying. You have a lot more freedom, And then Quick Attackization, I mean, I guess it's kind of cute, I don't know how much it came into play, but like, yeah, it was a nice option on the team. Then obviously you have the offensive Tornadus. From what I heard from Torviv, he said that he would have preferred Icy Wind over Taunt. But you never know, right? Because it is an offensive Tornadus. So then you have Changfu's team. This is a team I played versus in finals. This team was pretty much centered around like the Charizard or the Thunders being your main offensive maxes of choice, with the potential for Groudon the max. You have some pretty strong cores here. Zacian, Groudon, Gastrodon, Incin. You have Thunderous, Groudon, Zacian, Incin. You have like a bunch of variations there. Charizard, Groudon. So you have a lot there. Also, too, the Incineroar with Sash, which lets it swap into Kyogre Water Spout, which I thought was kind of a cute idea. I ended up, like, in our matches, just double tapping it majority of the time, right? So, kind of just worked out. But yeah, I mean, that's just something to keep in mind. And then, finally, we have my team, which just ended up winning. I mean, this just shows, like, Zacian Ogre is a really strong archetype. I've been using this team consistently, like, for the most part, and, like, I've literally just been making small improvements, and, like, Zacian Ogre is just really consistent in the format. Like, if you're a really solid player and you know how to, like, take advantage of your options, it's just, like, really good into the field, so it's just, like, it was a smart choice on my end, so I'm, like, glad I took it. But, yeah, that's, pretty much it overall, I guess, for the, teams aspect of it. So, out of all, a lot of the most used teams were pretty much Zacian Ogre or Zacian Groudon. I think those teams definitely both have the most potential right now. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it in terms of, like, I guess everything overall. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this video going over the teams. We're going to have a video going up about my specific team and kind of my run, everything. But yeah, once again, guys, thank you so much for all the support. I incredibly appreciate it, as always. And I will see you guys in the next video. If you guys would like to improve your skills, also make sure to check out coaching. We've had a lot of people sign up for coaching. Obviously, I've been pretty consistent in the format, so I feel really good about teaching people how to improve in this format. Also, make sure to check out Patreon. Team of the Zacian Ogre stuff is already posted up there. But yep, thank you guys so much for all the support, and see you guys on the next video. Peace.